Hello there. Today we are going to be capping off the Rebel Alliance capital ships with the largest capital ship in the entirety of the Rebel Alliance, and that is going to be the Mon Calamari cruisers. And today we are going to be going after the Mon Calamari cruisers, see how they were created, what their history was, and how they were utilized before the time of the Galactic Civil War, and how they were utilized even afterwards. So without further ado, here we go. But first, as always, we have to start with a little bit of a breakdown. The MC Mon Calamari cruisers, also known as the MC series Star Cruisers, were some of the heaviest duty Star Cruisers in the entirety of the Rebel Alliance, if not the entirety of the Rebel Alliance fleet. From frigates to heavy Star Cruisers, light Star Cruisers, and just Star Cruisers all around, there were multitudes of variations of models of MC Mon Calamari cruisers, from the MC 30s, 40s, 75s, 80s, 85s, and 95s, just to name a few. Also taking on the role as capital ships, they were affiliated with the Mon Calamari Monarchy, the Galactic Empire, the Alliance to Restore the Republic, the New Republic, the Resistance Movement, the Citizens Fleet, and even going into Legends continuity, they were part of multitudes of different groups, like the New Republic and the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. Now, right off the bat, you have to understand that the Mon Calamari were not a warlike species. They didn't care for war, and they preferred not to get engaged in war. The original Mon Calamari cruisers, for example, were originally built for civilian purposes and deep space exploration, so they could travel throughout the entirety of the Star Wars galaxy, basically doing whatever they want. It wasn't until the Galactic Empire actually got involved and started invading the planet of Mon Cala that everything changed for the worse. But of course, before we get into that, we first have to talk about the Mon Calamari people and the Civil War of Mon Cala. During the time of the Clone Wars, the Mon Calamari were basically in the middle of a giant civil war between them and the Quarren Isolationist League. Basically, the two of them wanted to have separate ideologies. The Mon Calamari wanted to join the Republic, and the Quarren wanted to join the Separatist Confederacy, but eventually the Separatist Confederacy had the upper hand, and the Quarrens then betrayed them, teamed up with the Mon Calamari, and defeated them to join the Republic, and one of the key figureheads of that civil war was Gale Akbar. After the Empire effectively invaded the entirety of the Mon Calamari, their systems, and all their home worlds, and basically started ravaging the entirety of the planet for resources, Admiral Akbar then convinced all of the Mon Calamari to basically join the Rebel Alliance to fight against the Empire, and effectively to use their massive ships to fight against the Empire on an equal front. After this, they turned all of their cruisers to the Rebel Alliance, and many Mon Calamari decided to join the Rebel Alliance, with these cruisers being so powerful that they could rival the Star Destroyers, effectively retrofitting them to become insanely powerful war machines that they designed so they could actually take on the Empire in an even 1v1 fight. And of course, with Admiral Akbar being who he was, being a war hero at the time of the Clone Wars, and being the leader of the Mon Calamari people during the time of their evacuation, he of course was put in charge of the Mon Calamari people and was put in charge of an MC-80 Star Cruiser, otherwise known as Home 1. Home 1 was a 1,200 meter long behemoth of a creature and was 112 million credits, with 4 Star Drive engines, 6 maneuvering engines, a Class 1 hyperdrive, and a Class 9 backup, with hyperdrive systems, SEAL shielding systems, long-range sensors, navigational systems, and an armament of God knows how many different turbo laser batteries, ion cannons, quad laser cannons, and hull-mounted tractor beam projectors, as well as a complement of 10 squadrons of starfighters, equaling up to about 120 starfighters, shuttles, landing crafts, utility vehicles, 20 different docking bay hangars, and a crew of 5,402 officers, pilots, and enlisted crew, with 1,200 passengers and enough consumables for 2 years, being supported as the role of a flagship for the Rebel Alliance, a battleship, a carrier, and a command ship that was brought about to the fray at about 2 BBY. And of course, with that description, it's extremely simple and extremely easy to clarify that Home 1 was probably one of the most important ships for the Rebel Alliance, if not the entirety of the Rebel fleet itself, considering that it was so important that it was literally the home base for the entirety of Rebel leadership. Now, of course, the main question that's on a lot of people's minds is how many Mon Calamari cruisers were there during the time of the Galactic Civil War. We just don't really know. We do know that during the time of Return of the Jedi, during the time of the Battle of Endor, there were 3 Mon Calamari cruisers present, with Home 1 being the flagship, as well as Liberty and Independence. We also know that there was an MC-40A light cruiser during the time of the Battle of Hoth. Of course, the Mon Calamari cruisers were during the Battle of Scarif, being controlled by Admiral Raddus, and there was one during the Battle of Zorn, and there were many of them afterwards, after the Galactic Civil War, during the Yuzan Vong War, and in Disney canon, the Battle of Jakku. But as for how many actual Mon Calamari cruisers there were during the time of the Galactic Civil War, at best we can probably say is about 40, and we don't really know how many actual ships there were that were serving during the time of the Galactic Civil War, because there's not really a lot of information about the Mon Calamari cruisers themselves. So we really don't know how many actual Mon Calamari cruisers there were in the actual Rebel Alliance themselves. But what we do know is that if it weren't for the Mon Calamari cruisers and the Mon Calamari supporting the rebellion instead of the Empire, then they wouldn't have stood a chance in hell against the actual Empire themselves. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys keep watching all of these videos and support this content. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, do whatever it is that you need to do, and I will see you later. Goodbye.